Hello, welcome to Kia e-Niro Diaries on the 5th of July 2025, and it's time to look at some sales updates. Global EV sales data is now available for May 2025, and that showed that 1.6 million cars with a plug were registered, which is 22% up on May 2024. Battery electric vehicles on sales growth was 19% to just over 1 million. So we've now reached a million a month globally of battery electric vehicles. And that's obviously going to continue to grow as the year goes on. Plug-in hybrids are up 28% to 500,000. And I think that's quite interesting because there's a lot more Chinese models now, plug-in hybrids, that have got electric ranges of sort of 60, 70, 80 miles, getting towards 150 kilometers. You can only hope that people actually do use them as they're meant to be used, and they do actually plug them in and save themselves lots of fuel. It would certainly be the way I'd want to use them. So stepping down to Europe, and the numbers for May 2025 are available now, and in May 305,000 cars with a plug were sold, which is a growth rate of 24% over May 2024. Now, the market is fairly stagnant, so the overall market in new car market in Europe is pretty stagnant. They're seeing very little growth, but year to date, 5.6 million new cars have been sold in Europe, and 1.4 million of those have been cars with a plug. So electric cars are at 25% of the market now. Battery electric vehicle sales have grown by 28%, and plug-in hybrids by 48%. And they make the point in this report that this is a lot to do with some far more capable Chinese plug-in hybrids, but also products from Volkswagen and Toyota. And I guess this feeds the need for those who can't quite go cold turkey on the smelly stuff. Okay, so the other thing in Europe to bear in mind on the other side of the equation, diesel sales year on year in Europe are down by 28%. They're now only 8% of the market. So Europe, the continent that famously bought lots and lots, at least half of all new car sales not that long ago were diesels, and they're now down to 8%. So they're on the way out. In some markets, they've pretty much disappeared altogether. And I think across Europe as a whole, we'll see diesels disappear completely from the new car sales charts. And that's a great thing. Petrol is down by 20% year on year, and that now stands at 28% of the market. So petrol-only cars. Hybrids are growing still, but their growth has slowed right down. 34% of all new car sales in Europe to date this year have been hybrid electric vehicles. But there's a sense that we're getting to peak hybrid, and that may well come next year. So, yeah, interesting the way that's going. And what it came down to was that so far this year, 62% of all new car sales in Europe have had some form of electrification. So drilling down a bit further and getting some more recent results, because the data for June in the UK is now out, and the overall car market grew 6.7% in June 2025 over 2024, June 2024. And EVs were 24.8% of the market, so almost 1 in 4 cars. There were 47,354 electric vehicles were sold. So that's a 39.1% year-on-year growth. The BEV market share, so pure battery electrics, were 21.6%, and that's still below the 28% that the government has set as a standard with its zero emissions vehicle mandate. This is something that is stressing the car companies because they're going to get fined. But I think, they're easing up on the fines. They're going to, they don't want to, put any of these companies out of business, because then you kill the goose, which could potentially lay a golden EV egg, I suppose. Anyway, that's the way it's going. I'll see what's going on in France and see if I can add a bit more to that. So now we come to France, and oh dear, France. So this year, the French new car market has fallen every month for the first half of this year. And in fact, June 2025 is 6.7% down on June 2024, exactly the reverse of the UK, which was 6.7% up. So it's also the weakest June for new car sales in France in 28 years. And the first half, what they call the H1 volume, was 842,000 vehicles. So that means you're talking a run rate of about 1.6 million, which is really kind of a bit like 2020 when we were in the pandemic. So how does that break down? Well, new petrol car sales are down by 30.7% for a 22.3% market share. Last June it was 30% market share. Diesel is down 40%. It's just dying the death like it is all across Europe. Only has a 5.7% market share. And if I could wind the clock back 10 years, you'd probably find it was 57%. And last year it was 8.9%. So it's kind of halved in a year. Hybrid electric vehicles are the only things that really grew in actual volume terms. They're up 19.5% on June 2024, with nearly 44% market share. Battery electric vehicle sales are stable. They're slightly down 2.4% in volume, but they're actually up slightly in market share, 17.2% so far this year, 16.4% last year. So the market share's grown a bit, but actual volumes are slightly down. Battery electric vehicles in France, 29,139 were sold, which is about 20,000 less almost than in the UK. So far this year in France, the whole new car market has looked really weak. Petrol, 23.1% down on the previous year. Diesel, 42.7% down in the first 6 months compared to 2024. And hybrids, the only ones that are really up. Plug-in hybrids were down, and say BEVs have been down a little bit, just a percent or two. So I mean, there's lots of things that could be accounting for this. The economy isn't that strong. I mean, it's flat. It's not any different to the UK really. Inflation here is lower. Unemployment is steadily going down, but there's just, I think, a mood of wait and see. And perhaps a lot of car buyers are saying, well, cars are just too damned expensive, and we're going to make what we've got last longer. And electric cars are just still too pricey compared to petrol equivalents, and we're going to hold back on sales. So the whole sales picture is very mixed. Globally, it's very, very strong for electric vehicles. There's no doubt that EVs are taking over from petrol, and in Europe they're rapidly displacing diesel cars. But anyway, there we go. I try to do this because there's so much negative stuff out there. You go on some of these websites and they're saying, oh, nobody wants EVs. I mean, there's a guy, Barry Crampton or something, I don't know, and he's got thousands of followers and he gets a hell of a lot more hits than I do. I guess he's pressed the right buttons on YouTube and he makes a bit of a living off it. I don't know. I mean, he's a retired car dealer and he comes across as very convincing and he knows all about cars, but he makes stupid mistakes like, saying that electric cars are just powered by the same kind of batteries that are in phones. And, he spins a lot of rubbish around like nobody wants second-hand EVs, where in fact I've just looked it up. Society Motor Manufacturers and Traders in the UK, used EV sales are up 53% so far this year on 2024. So clearly it's all nonsense. EVs are taking over, it's inevitable. And the biggest fantasy isn't like some of the anti-EV people tend to say that, oh, it's a fantasy, we'll all be driving electric cars. The biggest fantasy is that we can actually keep driving combustion cars burning non-replaceable fossil fuels forever. It's just not going to happen. Electric cars can be run on electricity, strangely enough, and electricity can be made without burning stuff, and that's increasingly the case. Solar is just growing like crazy, as is wind power and battery storage. So, you know, on the one side, you've got the energy transition, and then one of the consumer sides of the energy transition, which is vehicles, is really realizing it's far cheaper, more efficient, and more reliable and cleaner to use electric vehicles. Anyway, bit of rant there at the end. Hope you found that interesting. Until the next time.